Good morning. Thanks everyone for joining me here today on this snowy day. This year has been like no other. COVID has impacted all of us, some more than others. And I want to offer my sincere condolences to the families that have lost a loved one to COVID during this horrible time. And to the many Manitobans, including the Mayor of Morden, that are battling this virus. To all of you, my thoughts, my prayers are with you. COVID's handed us all some challenges, and they're new challenges for many of us, and greater challenges than ever before. It's challenged each of us to become more resilient, more innovative, more determined than we ever thought necessary. And I see that in so many Manitobans. Our number one priority in the face of this pandemic is protecting our most vulnerable Manitobans and ensuring our healthcare system is there for them when they need it. Notre priorité numéro une dans cette pandémie est de protéger nos Manitobans les plus vulnérables et de veiller à ce que notre système de santé soit pour tous les Manitobans quand ils ont besoin. The recent surge in COVID case numbers is very concerning for all of us as our healthcare system continues to be stretched and strained, and the people who work in it, who I say a special thank you to, deserve our tremendous respect and thanks. Nearly 2 weeks ago, under the direction of Dr. Roussin and our healthcare leaders, we implemented new public health measures in addition to those we had in place previously, which were some of the more stringent in the country already. And we moved all of Manitoba to critical or red on the pandemic response system in order to halt the spread of this virus and begin the battle of bending our COVID curve down. Despite these orders, which now are the strongest in the country, and the firm recommendation from Dr. Roussin, our healthcare leaders and all members of our government to stay home. And I know this is advice that many of you have given to your friends and family as well, to stay home and be safe. Some Manitobans, unfortunately, and some retailers are going against the spirit of those rules. And what this does is it creates a greater risk to public safety. That's why last Thursday we announced even stricter measures to limit residential gatherings, further limit retail operations with new capacity limits, and ensure that only essential items are purchased in person. Those measures came into effect on Friday, and I want to say to Manitobans, thank you so much, and thank you to the retailers too, who worked so quickly to comply and to arrange their stores for the weekend so that Manitobans who needed to purchase essential items in person could do that, and they could do it safely. And thanks also to Manitobans for not rushing out and creating crowds in the stores. I saw some video from Ontario, some of the stores there. You know, people going in droves to shop. In the big box stores in particular, that's a big risk to the people who go there to shop, but it's also a big risk to everybody you go home to see and your friends after, and it's a big risk to the people who work there too. We didn't do that here in Manitoba, and I believe that cooperation and that assistance that Manitobans gave is going to help us to bend this curve down. It'll take time. It'll take time, but it'll happen, and it'll happen because of you. Whatever results we get depend on you. And the people of Manitoba have the power to bend this COVID curve down. It isn't going to be easy. We know it's not easy. But it's the right thing to do, and Manitobans do the right thing. We'll get back to beating COVID. We can. I believe we will. Now, we recognize the significant personal and professional sacrifices that all Manitobans have had to make in the face of this pandemic to protect themselves, to protect their loved ones, to protect their community. And so again, I want to say to the small business owners in our province, to all business owners, you are the backbone of our economy. And I know that many of you have had to close your doors, lay off staff, rehire staff back, invest in additional safety measures, and you put capital on the line all the time. And you know, you create the jobs that we depend on for our kids and grandkids to work. So I just want to say thank you to you. And I want to say to you too, I've watched over the years the innovative skills of small business people to adapt and to thrive You'll get through this, and we'll do our best to help you as you do that. So I say thank you to you for being on Team Manitoba. Because of your efforts, your dedication, Team Manitoba is stronger and more resilient. We've been working side by side with Manitoba businesses throughout this pandemic to help them do what they do best, and that's employ Manitobans and offer services Manitobans rely on. But we know right now that many of our small business folks can't do that. And that's why we introduced a support program called the Manitoba Bridge Grant. It's $5,000 in direct support to any Manitoba business, nonprofit or charity, that has been forced to close as a result of the COVID-19 public health orders that came into effect on November 12th. And I want to emphasize, this is not a grant, that it's not a loan that you have to repay. You get to the, I'll give you the website in a minute, but you get on there and it's a grant. So it's money you can use for whatever purpose you feel is most appropriate. It's not tied, there's not strings on it. A lot of provinces have introduced programs that are like that, where you have to spend it on a certain subcategory of a subcategory to get any support. But that's not our program. Our program makes the money available to you, and then we trust that you'll make the decision about how you use those funds. I want to share with Manitobans that since that program went live, that's just 1 week ago, the Manitoba Bridge Grant has received 5,000, this is as of end of day yesterday, 5,564 applications from businesses all around the province, and we're getting hundreds more applications coming in every day. So I wanted to share with the small business owners that applied that the processing, we're committed to getting the processing time down so the money gets out to you quickly. And the first batch of payments will be issued by the end of this week, and that's $28 million in direct financial support. I would mention, others have talked about, I've heard it said, you know, we should do more. Yeah, you know, I don't think there's a government program or a series of them that can make up for the losses to our business community. I don't, and I feel badly about that. But I would say this. Compare our support programs to Ontario, for example. Ontario just announced that they were doubling their support for small business in their province. Their support for small business is a quarter of ours, 1/4 of ours. So I would emphasize, although we'd like to do more, we're in a real challenging situation fiscally. You all know the mess we inherited. And we're doing the best we absolutely can for our small businesses in this province. Take a look around the country, compare, and then you'll decide what you want to decide. But I know that Manitoba has some of the most generous programs in the country, and I believe our small business people are worth that, and I believe those are good investments back into their hands. If you'd like to apply for this, just go on manitoba.ca/COVID-19, click on Programs, and then click on Manitoba Bridge Grant. For assistance to complete the online form, you can contact the Manitoba Government Inquiry Line if you like. It's 204-945-3744. Or if you're out of town, you want to call toll-free, it's 1-866-MANITOBA. The program application deadline is coming up December 15th, so I encourage small business owners that want to apply to do that. And I should note, that should these public health orders have to remain in place past January 1st, as all of us hope they will not, but if they do, this bridge grant will be extended and it will be available to you to apply for, and there will be an additional $5,000 to eligible organizations there. So that's a total of $10,000 in direct financial support. Now, I want to also stress that businesses that have received other funding from us, we had a really well-subscribed program previously called the GAP Financing Program to support small businesses that couldn't get support from any, the federal government or anybody else. We had 10,000, helped 10,000 businesses there with about $6,000 each. That was a $60 million program. Just because you were on that program, that doesn't mean you can't be on this one. So you may be able, if you were on the GAP program, to get an additional $5,000 in addition to the $6,000 you got before. Plus, if we have to stay in the restricted zone and you have to stay closed down, another $5,000. So that would add up to $16,000. Additionally, I mentioned you're not disqualified if you applied for federal programming for the Bridge Grant and received funds from them either, so I would make that point. Additionally, we had 1,800 businesses that used our wage subsidy program, which was a program to offset, encourage businesses that were looking to get restarted. Remember those old days when we had hardly any cases of COVID? We all long for those days to come back. Well, at that time, a lot of the businesses were cash strapped. So what we said is we'd like to help you rehire people. We'll offer a support program of up to $5,000 per employee you hire back, up to a maximum of 20. I want to say to all the businesses, the 1,800 businesses there that applied for that program, we're not waiting till after the end of the year, as was the original plan, to get your money to you. You'll all get an advance payment of $1,500 for every eligible worker hired or rehired to date. So there's another $15 million in immediate support, and those funds will flow out this week as well. We're advancing this financial support now, and we're doing it to help bridge our businesses through this challenging time. We all hope and pray that we can get through this thing, and we all want to see our small businesses survive. We know they can't profit through this time because they can't do as much as they've been doing in the past. Now, some businesses are able to do that. They're essential services. Their businesses are less impacted. Other businesses are adapting. They're doing delivery. They're doing curbside pickup, and they're actually doing really well with that. But for some, this is certainly not a time that is one they'll look back on with joy. But we will look back on it with a sense of accomplishment and victory because we're going to get through this. And I maintain we've designed the right programs at the right time. Our programs are among the most generous in Canada. Certainly for small businesses specifically, they are the most generous. And we are going to help. Now, it's 1 month till Christmas. And so I have to say, whether it's Christmas you celebrate or you don't, maybe you celebrate something else. But the fact of the matter is, whatever holiday you celebrate, whatever gift giving you may do, whatever additional purchases you might like to do, I just want to really encourage you to do two things. Shop safely and shop local. Our local businesses are great people. They offer high quality products. They offer high quality services too. And they're being creative and innovative in finding safe ways to provide those services and goods to you in this difficult time. They're our neighbors. They're our friends. They've been there for us when we need them. Now I'm asking you to be there for them. Please do that. This is our call to action for support for local businesses. The best thing you can do for our businesses right now, above all else, besides supporting them with your dollars, is support them by doing the right thing and fighting COVID. Doing the right thing and following Dr. Roussen's recommendations, our recommendations. We did it before, we can do it again, but we need everybody on Team Manitoba. This is a team effort, and we all have a role to play in protecting ourselves, protecting our loved ones, protecting our communities too. But we're only as strong as our weakest link, so don't be the weakest link. We know that Manitobans, most Manitobans, are following the doctor's orders. But and I just wanted to say, a special shout out. You know that we've upgraded our enforcement and we've really increased that. I want to say a thank you to a business in Gimli that actually thanked our inspectors when they came to the business. I really appreciate that. I thought that was great. Chud's Power Sports in Gimli. There's a great business citizen of the province of Manitoba. Thanks for being on Team Manitoba to you folks. Our enforcement teams visited several thousand businesses last week alone to make sure they're following public health orders that will help protect Manitobans against this virus. And while the vast majority of Manitobans are following the rules, it's clear that unfortunately some organizations and individuals just aren't getting the message. In all, across Manitoba last week, 95 tickets had to be issued. That's roughly 10 times the number of tickets that was handed out at the start of the month. Looking back at last week, the combined total of fines was over $125,000. But it's not about the money. It's about preventing situations that hurt people. Situations like the one I'm about to describe. One of the tickets had to be issued to a hotel in western Manitoba that had its beverage room open and had people playing pool in it. That hotel was the Corona Hotel, which I have had a beer or two in my life, and it's a nice hotel in Glenella, Manitoba. But guys, don't do things like that. This is disheartening. All of us miss seeing our friends. We all miss taking part in recreational activities. Some of us even miss going for a beer once in a while, and this is not the time. I want to also say to you that there was a rally held in Steinbach on November 14th. In all, 16 tickets have been sworn, and so far, and there is investigation continuing on a large number of additional tickets for individuals who unfortunately decided that their right to rally was more important than someone else's right to life itself. Peaceful protest in a democracy is never to be taken lightly, but today's public health and emergency orders matter more. And this rally put public health at risk for everyone who attended and everyone who came into contact with them afterwards. We also know of a large church service that took place this past weekend in southeast Manitoba. And again, putting public health at risk for everyone who was there and for the rest of the community thereafter. Enforcement personnel were there in the interests of not accelerating the situation. They did not hand out many tickets on site. One was handed out, but evidence is being gathered. Evidence was gathered, and other tickets will be issued as well. I'll report on these. I long for the day that we didn't have to do this, and I look forward to the day that there aren't any tickets issued because people get the message. But in the meantime, the message is clear. Protect each other. If you break the rules, there are going to be consequences. You don't have to believe in COVID. COVID believes in you. If you don't understand that by now, I guess more money out of your pocket's the consequence. I'd like to thank everyone who's working hard to stop those who are disregarding public health measures. I want to say a special thank you to the folks that have called our tip line. A reminder to everybody, if you see something going wrong that's risking putting other people at risk and violates the public health orders, I appreciate you saying something. Report it to the tip line. You can contact the tip line to voice concerns and share information. You can call 204-945-3744 or 1-866, that's a toll-free number, 1-866-626-4862. And then you press option 3 on the call menu. Now you could also, if you want, go online, www.manitoba.ca/COVID-19, and you can complete the reporting form on there. This is a team effort. So I want to say a thank you to our enforcement partners as well. We've got some great civil servants out there doing a job that they didn't think they were going to have to do. And they're adapting and they're doing it, and I thank them for that. I want to say thanks to them for stepping up and assisting Team Manitoba. Doing everything we can to halt the spread of this virus is what we are about. And we're protecting our most vulnerable people when we do it. But, my friends, it is about us. The government didn't go out to a bar and then walk around to 2 other bars and give COVID to 100 people. That isn't what the government does. And no government alone can stop people from doing the things that hurt each other. We need everybody on this team now, and I'd urge people to follow the public health orders. Our actions are going to determine how we will be able to go forward, not just during the holidays, but in the new year and thereafter. The next few weeks aren't going to be easy, but I am confident if we continue to work together, we can get back to beating COVID. When we were abiding by the fundamentals, we were beating COVID. And some of us lost our way, and now COVID's beating us. And we need to get back to the fundamentals. And we need to flatten our COVID curve, and we need to do it now for the good of all of us. Lorsque nous respections les fondamentaux, nous battions COVID. Alors certains d'entre nous ont perdu notre chemin. Et maintenant, COVID nous bat. Nous devons revenir aux fondamentaux et piller notre curve COVID. Maintenant. It is crucial that we follow the fundamentals. Stay home. Only leave your home for essential purposes. Stay home when you're sick. Stay home if any member of your family is sick. Don't socialize with people outside your household. Wash your hands. Cover your cough. Practice physical distancing. Wear a mask. Stay kind. Stay optimistic. Stay hopeful. Support those who need your help now with a phone call. Be together in this thing. Be Manitobans. Thank you. Look forward to your questions.
Thank you, Mr. Premier. A reminder to our reporters on the line, you will have one preliminary and one follow-up question. Up first, from the Winnipeg Free Press, Carol.
Good morning, Premier. The Conservative MP in your old federal riding says the province hasn't provided the public with sufficient data to justify closing businesses and restricting civil liberties. Do you agree with Candice Bergen, and will your government be posting more data publicly to back up the measures you're taking?
I think there'll be every reason to believe that the way in which we've approached this pandemic has been to build support among our people in Manitoba to work towards us protecting one another. The measures we've taken are stringent. They are the most stringent in the country, but they are absolutely essential and necessary to protect lives here. And so we'll stay focused on battling COVID, and I would not want anyone to misunderstand my sincere affection and respect for Candice Bergen, but I am the Premier of a province that has the highest positivity for COVID, and we're going to stop that from continuing.
And Premier, we heard you say on the weekend that the contact tracing backlog is down to zero. How are you informed of that, and why are nurses who do the contact tracing refuting that? When it's something like data and facts, shouldn't that be irrefutable?
Well, Carol, I'm sure there'll be ups and downs every day with contact tracing. The contact tracing backlog was dealt with on Friday. That was the information I was given and shared. That doesn't mean it's dealt with every day. So again, I've thanked our nurses and frontline workers repeatedly, and I'll continue to. And I know and understand the stress that they experience very well. I have good friends who are nurses, and I understand the issues that they're dealing with every day. So, all I can tell you is, if we can get this curve bent down, it's going to take a big load off the stress that our frontline health workers, including our nurses, have to face. And I think that's the number one thing we have to stay focused on.
From Global, Malika.
Hi, Premier Pallister. Just wondering about the church gathering outside of Steinbach over the weekend. We're wondering why individual tickets were not given. Like, why did the church not receive a $5,000 fine, and why are you just ticketing after the event?
Well, my advisors tell me that a concern, and this is not just the RCMP, but other enforcement officials have to bear in mind, is not to accelerate the dangers in a situation and create greater harm for people. And so I think that's the rationale there, Malika, that they didn't want to go into the church and then potentially create a more dangerous situation, a more violent situation. And so data was gathered, evidence was gathered, and other tickets will be issued, and I'll be giving you an update on that next week.
Okay, thank you, Premier Pallister. And we just wanted to know, what are your thoughts on the group's defense of freedom of religion in this case with public health measures being in place?
I'm a person who has tremendous respect for people of faith, and I'll not lose that faith in them, but I will advise them that their faith and their worship does not take precedence over a public health order under the Charter or in any other common sense mind that I respect. Your right to gather is limited by these public health orders. You need to accept that. And remember, you're doing this to protect the people in that very congregation and their family and friends. And you're in an area where the positivity rate has exploded now to the highest in Canada, 40%. So please, demonstrate respect for the health and well-being of others. Demonstrate respect for the fact that the officials, our health officials, are doing their very, very best to try to protect you, as well as all other Manitobans.
From the Brandon Sun, Colin.
Hi, Mr. Premier. When enforcement started to get stepped up in recent months, it was mentioned that some amount of the funds would be going to the organizations that are helping enforce public health orders. Has any of that money gone out to those organizations at this point?
We did outsource to a private company some of the responsibilities to bolster our ranks, And some of these tickets that were issued the past week, I don't have the numbers right in front of me, Colin. I'd say about a third, I'm guessing around a third of the tickets were issued by that agency. In addition, we partnered with a lot of the rural municipalities. We could get you a list of the funding support we've offered to rural municipalities as well, because remember, COVID isn't just in the city of Winnipeg. It's around the province. And so deterrents need to be available in various areas of the province to make sure that people are abiding by the public health orders wherever they may live.
My follow-up question is on the current ban on non-essential item sales. There were a couple of changes to the list of essential items over the weekend. Has your government received any more feedback on things that should be changed, and will we be seeing anything added to that list this week?
Possible. It's also possible, I'll go back to the Bridge Grant, it's possible as well that we may expand that program to include some other businesses. These are under discussion, both these two issues. Because remember, we're dealing with multifaceted ramifications here, literally tens of thousands of possible exceptions and examples. But the number one goal here that we must all share is to reduce our number of contacts, to make sure that, and that is starting to happen according to the public health numbers. Reducing our number of contacts will reduce the rapidity with which COVID can multiply. In other words, when someone gets COVID, if they've had fewer contacts, there are fewer people not only to be contacted by public health officials, but also a reduced likelihood that others have got COVID from that individual. So this is the reason for the health orders in large part, and this is why we're asking people to comply with them.
From CJOB, Alicia.
Good morning. Premier Pallister, I have a couple of, I'm curious about a couple of updates that have happened over the past month or so. First one is the remote learning center. Do you know how many teachers have applied for those 100 positions, and are you having trouble filling them?
I don't have that info with me, Alicia, I'm sorry, but we'll get that info for you from the Education Ministry.
Okay, thank you. And the second one, you may not have the numbers for this either, but do you know how many people have volunteered through the Help Your Neighbor website to help at the COVID testing site?
I know there were a few hundred on the website already, but I don't have that detail either, and so you've got me on two short snappers there, Alicia, that I don't have the answers for, but we'll get you the information today.
Thanks, I appreciate that.
From the Winnipeg Sun, Josh.
Good morning, Premier. It's Josh Aldridge from the Winnipeg Sun. Regarding the anti-mask rally in Steinbach about 10 days ago, you said last week that there would be more fines and possibly charges coming from that. Talk about the fines going out to people who were there taking part in the demonstration. Is there any more on potential charges stemming from that demonstration, whether they are health order related or not?
There's further investigation underway, Josh, and I don't have the separate subtotal with me on that specific event thus far, but I do think we have that data, so we can get you that for your interest, and you can have a look at it. But it's not over yet. There's been more evidence gathered, and there's more investigation underway.
My second question is a bit of a two-parter. According to the Engage MB survey completed last week, there were 77% of Manitobans who were dissatisfied with the province's response to the pandemic. 22% said they're somewhat dissatisfied. 55% said they're very dissatisfied. I was wondering if you could respond to that. As well, are you seeing or encouraged are there any encouraging signs out there that health orders currently in place are actually working beyond the drop in average contacts that Rusin mentioned yesterday?
Well, two things. I would have been very surprised if Manitobans are very happy about the rate at which we've had increased cases of COVID. I'm sure not. So I'm with Manitobans on that one. As far as our response, I think I know how hard we've been working as a government, so I'm not dissatisfied with the work of my colleagues or our civil servants or our public health officials. Not dissatisfied with that. Nobody likes to have a loss, Josh. I come from sports for years. I've experienced people who panic when they lose. There's no panic in me. There's no panic in our government. We've got a plan. We're acting on that plan. We've introduced some of the toughest measures in the country now because we believe that our plan can work to restore safety to our people. And the fact of the matter is that as good as a plan is, it always depends on the players on the field. And Manitobans are the players now. So we're doing everything we can to encourage them. Today I'm announcing supports for those who are being hurt in the small business community. Some generous supports, but never going to make up for the pain they're hurting. And we are also introducing some deterrents, and I'm giving weekly reports now. I promise to do that. And I hope, as I said, that they're not necessary, going forward, because Manitobans get on the team. But it's a function of how well we do in following Dr. Roussen's orders that the number of COVID cases, these two things aren't separate. They're the same.
From CBC Radio Canada, Chloe.
Good morning, Premier Pallister. The new restrictions are forbidding Manitobans to bring visitors to their houses. Is this rule enforced with fines, like the public gathering and people who don't wear a mask in public spaces?
It'll be incredibly difficult to enforce, Chloe, but it is a finable offense to bring in people from outside unless you're in that exceptional category of folks who need aid, for example, home care, a senior who needs home care, and that type of thing.
Okay, and Health Canada sent its recommendation for Christmas time and said we should celebrate only with people in our own household. I know that the public health said that we'll wait and see what happens with the new restrictions when they're lifting, but do you have a message to send to Manitobans who are already preparing for these celebrations?
Yeah, this is the year to adapt. This is the year to not get together apart from those in your household, but rather to celebrate family in a real way by contacting and being in touch with those you love and care for. We have technologies now we can use that we didn't have years ago. It's important to remember that the real celebration in 2021 at Christmas time would be best if it would included all our family. And when we get this COVID curve flattened and we do get a vaccine, and that will be, I emphasize, not something we should assume is happening shortly, we have to face the battle together of being very, very observant of the rules that Dr. Roussen has prescribed and making very, very sure that we do our best to protect the health and well-being of each other. That's ultimately the best holiday gift that we could give each other, is life itself.
From CBC Manitoba, Bart.
Hello, Mr. Premier. Based on what we could gather in the last couple of days, the actual delay on contact tracing isn't over on the public health nurse side, but it seems to be the gap between the time the lab gets the positive test results and then that information is entered into something called the Public Health Information System and then handed to public health. That seems to be the gap. Now, we've got outside help doing that. In the short, immediate term, are you looking at bolstering that data entry so that the public health nurses can jump on the cases faster?
I think that's a great point, Bartley, and that backlog was addressed also as of Friday, but I expect with the shoot up in cases the last 2-3 days that there's going to be a challenge on that data entry piece, and yes, we are looking at bolstering on not only that side, but on the contact side. And I hope to have more to say to you, if not later this week, early next, on some specific additional measures that we're taking to shore that up. And I say this not as a criticism of anyone who's doing the work now, because people are working very hard, but as the reality that as COVID continues to infiltrate more and more households, it's going to start to potentially infiltrate some of the households where people who work on the front line in healthcare live. And that's going to have the necessity, I think, of us having to bolster our ranks even further and get more people ready to do a variety of things all along the chain, all along the continuum, including but not limited to the things you mentioned, but also things like actually doing the lab analysis itself, and the data gathering is in the testing as well. So all along the continuum, we're looking to bolster that.
Thank you for that. You mentioned the next few weeks are going to be difficult. We can tell from the last couple of days that you are privy to some information prior to the rest of us. We've seen a lot of cases in the last few weeks. What have you been told about projected deaths in the next few weeks?
Well, a couple of points. First of all, I hope this won't sound like an excuse. It isn't an excuse, I don't think, to say that for our public health officials to get all the data out, and I as you know, I've said many times over the last 8 months, I'd like to see more data out to Manitobans, not less. I've said that. But our public health officials are under the gun to do a lot of things right now, and they've got to focus their resources on protecting people's lives. That's the first and top priority. So I hope, and I know this is tough for members of the media wanting to get information. I want to get it out to you too. Public health officials are doing their best, but they're focused really not so much on all the columns of stats that you might like. They're really focused on trying to protect people. That being said, the analysis that I've seen shows that our plateau or peak, and I won't get into specifics, will not be as high as was projected under worst case scenarios just 3 weeks ago when I first looked at those projections. I can share that with you. It looks like it's starting to come down. But in saying that, I run the risk that some Manitobans would take that as a sign that they could relax on adhering to social behavior that would assist us in making that a reality. And so there's a danger in sharing with you perspectives on prospective data, because the real data is what matters. The real data is determined by Manitobans' behaviors, and the best behavior possible is to limit your social contact, stay home, and do the things that Dr. Rusin is advising. So again, I say stay on that, stay on the fundamentals. When we did the fundamentals right, we were beating COVID. And we can get back to beating COVID if we do those fundamentals right now.
From the Canadian Press, Steve.
Premier, Alberta is nipping on our heels in terms of new cases now. They're looking at imposing more restrictions. What would you say they might learn from Manitoba's case? Because while cases were rising in September and October, there were cautionary notes from you and Dr. Rusin about limiting contacts. They were somewhat vague and not very specific. Not a very complete crackdown until recently. What advice would you have for Alberta in terms of dealing with the surge that it's starting to see there?
I got a brand new grandniece in Red Deer, so I got a conflict of interest on this one, Steve. Thanks for asking. Every premier is doing their absolute best. Every government across country. Doesn't matter. Politics don't matter here. They shouldn't matter now. I try to tell the opposition that here, but they seem to forget. But the fact of the matter is, we're all in this together. But not every province has to take exactly the same approach. And so I don't want to get into quarterbacking other provinces. There are premiers there doing their absolute best, except to say this. I think it's dangerous what the Quebec premiers decided to announce on Christmas. I think it's dangerous. And he's got to run that province, and I respect Premier Legault, but I will say to Manitobans, and I've been called by one paper here, I think I was called a number of things, but the Grinch was one of the things. I'm not trying to deprive people of a wonderful Christmas. I'm trying to make sure that this year we define Christmas differently. And the way we define our holiday season this year is that we're doing our very, very best to keep all of our family around so that next year we can all be together at Christmas. That's a different way to celebrate. It's not an easy way to celebrate. It's not the normal way to celebrate, but it's the right way to celebrate, and it's the way we have to do it. So this isn't going to be easy. We've got to do it together. And by gosh, when we get through this thing, we'll look back, I hope, with pride that we've done the right things. And I think that the right thing to do is not to tell people you can get together in a larger group at the holiday season. As tempting as that is, I think that's a mistake.
And you mentioned a specific business today, a hotel out in western Manitoba. You sound rather taken aback by what happened there. And have you heard about the reaction? Because in naming the business, I assume that there's been some admission of guilt or something out there.
I have mixed emotions naming the business. I'm not trying to give them advertising here. I don't think that that's necessary or right. But I do think that all the small businesses of this province need to understand, all businesses, not just small, medium-sized, large businesses too, need to understand that we're serious about this being the wrong behavior, and we're serious about getting the message out to Manitobans. And if that helps, then I'm going to continue to do it. And I want other small businesses, medium-sized businesses, and large businesses to know that as well. And going forward, if you break the public health rules, there's a good chance you might get your name mentioned on TV.
From CTV Winnipeg, Jeff.
Hello, Mr. Premier. On the tickets that are going out after the fact, are they, as you suggested last week, landing in the mail via license plates like a photo radar ticket? And why not give that church a $5,000 fine? It's an organization, not an individual.
Well, the interesting thing here, Jeff, is that you and I don't get to decide on that. We have to trust our enforcement officials, and we can all have an opinion on it, but they're out there in the real world, and they're doing this job, and I respect them doing it. So I'll leave it to our justice officials and enforcement officers to do their job. It's pretty obvious by stepping this up, I think it's awfully serious, but the fact of the matter is I'll encourage them to do their job, but I don't do their job for them.
And on, I just wanted, you've touched on it a couple times, and I asked you last week about Christmas. I'm going to ask it as clear as I can. We are, as you say, we're a month away from Christmas Eve. December 11th is when the public health orders run to now, but with case numbers, what are the odds, Mr. Premier, in your mind that those health orders are going to be in place into the new year? That it's not just going to be asking people not to get together; it's going to be mandated through a health order. The odds, you must think the odds are very good, do you not?
Well, when the Jets step on the ice against any other team in the NHL, you and I can make odds before the game, but the ultimate reality of it is if they all play well and together, they got a chance to win. And if they don't, they got a good chance of losing. We make our own odds in this province, and the more people understand that, the better. Government can have all the rules it wants. Doesn't matter. We were doing well. When we were doing well, Manitobans were following the fundamentals. If they follow the fundamentals, they shift the odds in our favor. That's what I'm after them doing. So I'm not going to make guesses, because I'll tell you, it's entirely in the hands of the people on the ice right now, and that's Manitobans, and literally on the ice now, I guess.
Our final reporter this morning, Mr. Premier, from CHVN, Taylor.
Hi, good morning. A lot of businesses are saying that they think the closures were unnecessary and that they can still open safely and responsibly. How do you respond to this?
I believe them when they say they can open responsibly. I do not believe them when they say they can open safely, because in opening they will encourage people to travel, move around. As we move around, we take COVID with us, whether we know it or not. It's a sneaky adversary. You can have it and not know you have it. And 5 days later, when the symptoms come up, you probably, if you were active in the community, you went to 17 stores, you went shopping for Christmas. By gosh, you know what happens? Your contact list is really, really long, and you gave COVID to a whole bunch of people. So I love small business. I come from small business. I have been an ardent supporter of small business organizations for a long, long time. And I can tell you, small business organizations that support these measures are smart to do it, because the sooner we get behind these measures, the sooner we can get small business back doing what they do best.
And how do you feel now that it's a church who is very vocally going against public health orders and have gained a lot of attention because of it?
I'm sorry, I missed you clicked out on the first part there, Taylor. Ask that again if you don't mind.
How do you feel seeing that it is a church that is going against public health orders and that they are very vocal about it?
Well, I've said it before and I'll say it again. Have a little faith. have a little faith in the people who are in leadership positions. Don't distrust people just because they're given the responsibilities of being the premier or the public health officer. Don't distrust them, and don't fail to love them, because we are doing our absolute best with a rotten situation. And so have some faith that we can do this together. And remember, your congregation needs to be healthy, and they'll be healthier if you don't meet for a little while. Listen to the public health orders. And please, be careful out there. Be careful with one another and supportive of one another. You have so many other ways to assist your congregation, so many other ways that you can be in contact with each other, not face-to-face. But with the technologies that we have now, you have the ability to reach out and do the good work that your church does. I encourage you to do that. I pray that you do that. Thank you.